She's probably trying to.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that I think she was going to go away and record. Anyway, I'll share my screen with you guys and um sort of talk about what we're going to cover tonight between me and Peter Crabb, who you've all met before, who's project managing the plant upgrade. Is that working? No, yeah.
There we go.
Is that
Yeah,
working for you guys?
excellent. Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, so this is just our first slide here. Um, Tonight we'll sort of split it into two bits. It'll probably go reasonably quickly, and then at the end, if there's any sort of discussion with people and they want to ask questions and pass comments, we can hit that. So first of all, we'll just talk about consent tasks we're currently undertaking and recently completed. Some of it might be a little bit of a repeat from the last one, but some of you might not. I think Chris wasn't there for the last one. So the current investigations and studies we've spent time, we're all aware, looking at Marth Road and on the Peacock land, looking at SDI, and it works, but we've had some early cost estimates, and it is a fairly expensive option. So then we swung over to Wainui Reserve here and looked at on the not so suitable soils, not so loamy. We looked at that, and I think we talked about it last time. There were a few shortcomings on that, where basically we end up having to drain the field, and that it's it's a solution, but it's got its option, its problem. So then we, after talking to one of the iwi groups, we've spun around and we've been looking at some land contact options, which would drain, and we've looked at sort of three, four sort of options. Um, I had a meeting with the consultant just today, and I'm busy sort of developing the options, and we'll probably by the next meeting we will have some photo montages which we can sort of visualize and sort of show, and it'll be really, really handy for us for when we start talking to the parks, any other stakeholder groups and iwi on what we're planning on doing. This is looking fairly encouraging, and I know Mike had a few questions last time about, we'd looked at the stream ecology last time and sort of ruled it out. So it'll be, once we've worked out how to look at these options, and I'll quickly talk about the areas I'm looking at. I might flick back. The
Yeah,
first one's that planted gum up on Wainui Reserve. That's the photo there. And I'll just flick back to the last one. That's in this sort of area here on Wainui Reserve. And it drains out. This would be a sort of running through and creating a planted area, and they're sort of working on that concept currently. But the effluent, the permeate, which is highly treated, will and Peter can talk about the quality that he's going to get out of it later, will run down that gully, and it will be basically a land contact, but a marine discharge. The
yeah.
next area we're looking at is on the eastern side of the reserve, and it would drain towards the Wainui stream. So it's this gully through here we've been looking at, sort of discharging with a land contact area, and through here is what the preliminary sort of plans they showed me today they do. But obviously that permeate would run down and it would end up in the Wainui stream. So
Yeah,
that
just on this, probably just a question here. Like we councils started to change its tack with both here and Tikawata, where we've got some
yep,
pretty big issues with discharge to land, and we've got, as you'll know, some pretty serious budgetary issues going on that are not getting any better. So, one of the things I'd like to know is the costs of these investigations, because given what we're doing with our plant upgrades, the story has actually changed, and people are starting to, different groups are starting to express different opinions on things. So I'd just like to sort of get a bit of a handle on what these costs, just for the investigations, are costing, because there may be a change in direction with council just due to affordability and things.
We can talk to you. I think that's best done sort of,
Offline, yep, that's fine.
yeah, away from this mic. If you
Yep.
welcome to come in
Yeah.
and we can go through what studies.
Qualitatively, though, Richard, investigation costs us very small.
Right. So it's the,
Yeah, so
just a hit, sort of a a helicopter view of that would be good. Thanks.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And what is that all right, Richard? I just wanted to reiterate in this particular solution set, there's kind of three arrangements, there's three slides. But in all cases, the existing discharge is retained, the purple line on the right-hand side. And that's in extreme events, like massive hurricanes. The permeate line will continue to operate, but you've got flows over and excess of what the permeate system will be capable of. So the purple line is still retained.
Still, that's our pump. That's our currently pump discharge out there. So yeah, one of the getting back to the locations we've been looking at, one is that area down through here. And then we've got another one within the plant, which would probably end up discharging after its land contact out here. But it's very, very early days. I only saw the first cut of what the concepts that Becca are developing for me there. The options then will need to be assessed by stakeholders, and then the favoured options will then need to link back to and to update our ecological assessments of the streams and the impacts on the stream, and then we'd have to do a microbiological risk assessment, which is looking at all the pub contact health sort of issues around what we're looking at. And as I sort of talked about last time, we had looked at this before you raised the question, Mike, and part of a reason that we can look at this is that the sort of quality of effluent is better than what we modelled previously, and Peter can talk a little bit about that when he talks about what's going on. So that's sort of where we're at the studies. We're hopeful to get the options montages pretty much finished in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll probably start talking to especially the iwi stakeholders initially on whether to some extent the land contact is cultural treatment and what the iwi are looking for. And then we'll get these options costed up and do the other assessments I just mentioned before around the ecology and the public health type of assessments we have to do for the options, which especially discharge into the Wainui stream, which obviously runs into it flows into a high body contact area, recreational area, and plus there's quite an amazing existing ecology in that stream from our previous work we've done. Okay, so the next one, Peter will now start talking about what he's up to at the plant.
Cool. So thanks, Richard. Yeah, so the wastewater treatment plant, the existing wastewater treatment plant, just to recap, is made up of a number of ponds, and the two upper ponds, so the flow splits into the two upper ponds there, which is indicated to the left and the right. After that, it flows down to the lower two ponds, and they're called oxidation ponds. And basically, there's flows retained for time, and it's oxygenated, and that bacterial action is what ultimately treats the water and clarifies it. It then goes off to a pond, and it's got a polyethylene liner down the bottom where it's really held there during incoming tide. In the outgoing tide, it pumps out. There is an emergency day pond, roadside pond, where flow is held. That's currently full in that photo. And that's in a storm events when, or if there's so let's say a UV pump station failure, then flow goes into that, and then it pumps away. So that's the current system. The current system doesn't have, it's sort of at capacity. It has no capacity left. The treatment targets we're aiming for the new plant is very high. It's an MBR treatment system. Visually, the water looks the same from a visual perspective, what comes out of your tap, so you can't visually tell a difference. It will fit into half the land that you can see there is the clay area in the middle. So we'll be able to take a plant to many times the size of the current capacity within a small area of the existing plant. So there's no additional land required. It's very compact. On the right-hand side there is the layout, and it's made up of, it's got a little building to the left-hand side. That little building is the control room, it's electrical building. Then the middle area serves as screenings. So the flow that comes in screened. Some of our customers are kind enough to give us plastic, a few other bits and bobs. They come out in the screened area. Then the rest of the tank there is the activated sludge reactor with the membranes sit in the back end. So that sort of has a sort of a hot chocolate type consistency, and that's where all the magic happens. The bacteria are the engine of the plant. They do basically remove the carbon that's in the water. So from the washing up the back of the washing machine, it's getting digested there. The nitrogen that arrives to us from it's the main loading that want to remove the waterways. That's also taken out of there. The water is alternated between being anoxic and oxic, and that is the sort of sequence, alternation sequence that removes the nitrogen. At the end, which is the two black boxes at the end, that's where the membranes sit and they filter. So that hot chocolate's getting filtered all the time, and you end up with a clear liquid that comes out the end. Now, the receiving environment and one of those options is quite robust, so we would be able to push the membranes very hard, even extreme events. And that would mean there would be very few times you would ever use the existing discharge. If the receiving environment is a high quality aquatic environment, then you'd be wanting to keep the nitrogen very low and stay very low. And that would mean we would need to run the storm system more often, which is existing discharge. The targets, the process targets that we're aiming for the permeate that comes out of the new plant is the requirement set for a river discharge into the Waikato River. So we've pretty much set a goal here to do what other plants do and hit a high bar, and it fits within a small plant or small footprint, and it's a very compact setup. The progress on site has been swift. We started work in December. The earthworks is done, and we've started our concrete pour. So you can see the cut there. That excavation, people for scale, it's not massive, but that's where the main activated sludge reactor is. That's the square box at the back, where the photo's taken from the ground, where the photographer's standing. That's where the screenings facility will be. So at the moment, we've put down the gravel bed to form the base. We've removed any soft clay material, formed a compacted hard layer. The concrete that's going down at the moment is just for site screed, so we can start forming a reinforced base. And the reinforced base started to go down this week. So we're going at a pace. We're ahead of program, and we're looking to be, certainly operational ahead of our intended date. So yeah, so we're pretty pleased with progress. It's gone well. We're at the moment, at the same time as the civil works happening, we're also procuring the main pieces of equipment. So the important equipment's either arrive or is on order, and the design, the final elements of design are getting shaped, and the design reports getting reviewed and comments set backwards and forwards. So it's a high activity time, a lot of design activity, a lot of procurement, but also the main civil works are running in parallel and underway. Cool. So yeah.
Thanks, Peter. A quick question. So when is it? When are you planning to have it operational?
Well, it's the problem of giving you a promise. There's there. So it's typically a build like this is 18 months, meaning it would be ready June next year. That's the timeline that we set out. Yep. But we are currently tracking to be operational early next year. That's current progress. So.
Right. Yeah. Any chance could we drop up and have a look, or is that you don't want people wandering around?
Well, so at the moment, if you can sort of picture from that photo, there's a lot of civil activity, a lot of crane activity, plenty of opportunity to be squashed.
Yeah.
There is chances to come in. We would love to host people. We just kind of wanted potentially a date.
Yep.
And so forewarning, and we'll schedule it in so that we have a chance to complete the concrete pours that we wanted to do, and then control people's movements in and out. So,
No problem. So if I got in touch with you and just ask when's a good time?
yeah, it's I can't see there's no particular, we're happy to engage people, show them around. In terms, it's a whole. So with reinforcing,
Yep.
we can try and make that as exciting as possible. It gets more exciting when the equipment arrives. That's the part that's more exciting. It's around October time, you can generally start to show people the equipment and it's meaningful. At the moment, it looks no different than building a basement for a building. So yeah.
That'll be similar stuff to Tikawata, similar plant equipment.
Similar equipment. If to Kalfota, when you're standing there, the stainless steel tanks are above ground. In this particular case, it will be more like walking up to a swimming pool, but the swimming pool's wall comes up to sort of waist height. And then you'll look over the wall, and it won't be clean water. It'll be like chocolate, bubbling away.
Yeah. Oh, look, the reason I asked, Peter, is I actually build stuff, so I don't mind looking at earthworks and stuff like that. I'm just, curious to see how they're going, but that's fine. I don't want to get in your way.
Oh, so if you're interested in the hole being dug, you are welcome to book in and come see us. Yeah, happy days. It's just that when people come in a mass mob and they're expecting a little bit of excitement, well, it's an excavator digging a hole, and the technical interest, and it is wastewater treatment is remarkable. It's still someone working in the industry for a long time. It is remarkable to see wastewater come in and something that's indistinguishable from flowing clean water drop out the other end. Every time you turn a plant on, that is pretty special. It's so I think in terms of liquid stream treatment, the technology is remarkable. It's achieved a very high bar. There will continue to be innovation, but the main innovation now in my industry is solid stream treatment. But this has hit an incredible bar, and it's moved at a pace technically a lot faster than I anticipated when I was young. So yeah, it's to Kalfota, but it's much larger. So to Kalfota is 1.8 megaliters, and this plant is going to deliver 3.5 megaliters, and it'll do 5.5 when it's finished. So it's a big plant.
Yeah. The other thing I'm a bit curious about is you're going to have some spare space. We've talked about this before with the old ponds, and that they'll be there for backup and stuff. But I'm just interested in what the final concept looks like in terms of remediation, in terms of potential wetland restoration within the site, if there is any, and just what that's looking like, planting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when you first come in via the gate there's an area of wetland that has been partially regenerated. There's also an area of pines that I understand, the intent is to take those down and regenerate that area. The amount of pond, we would want to retain the ponds for as long as possible. You really don't know how a network is going to perform until you start running. Now, how hard that network hits us in a storm event, as we get more, we would not want to release an asset until we were confident that we were never going to use it.
Look, I'm not suggesting that at all. I think you hold on to the whole piece of land for whatever reasons you might need, but it's just, what does that look like in terms of what is the restoration, in terms of what's it going to look like potentially?
It look like it does today, but the water inside the ponds will become a lot cleaner. So it would go from being, at the moment, the upper ponds on Richard's photo, you'll see a slightly sort of a darky green. When you're up close to them, it is opaque. You can't really see very far into the water. And the lower ponds, there's sort of more clarity but they're green and oxidated. In the future, they're not loaded anymore. So we will fill them up with some we'll drain them down and send them through the process and put permeate back in. So they will freshen up a lot. The lower ponds, they're darker in colour, but that's because the light's going through them. So when you get down close to them, that water is cleaner.
Is there any opportunity though to put a wetland in there and treat the water that's coming out, the very high quality water, through a small wetland system within the area?
So I think what you're referring
to, Mike, have you been to the plant at all?
Yep.
Yeah. We do have quite well planted areas through here already, and we do This is the Taniwha's lair up here
Yep.
where you know, and you're aware we've got, and we continue to work with the iwi's nursery on that. We've got some replanting and reworking there. But one of the options we're looking at is this wetland. This is an old pond here,
Yeah.
disused pond, and taking that out and turning it into. So next time round, we will have some montages of that and sort of visualizations of what we can do in that area. Like Peter said, we've got these things, these horrible pines, which I know
Well,
they're
rather than
valuable.
taking up to Wainui Reserve, I'm wondering whether you could do something on the site
That,
with
and
tree.
that's exactly what we're looking at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
is what you're talking about is one of the strong options
Yeah,
because it removes us. It makes it a lot easier to implement too, Mike. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we don't
Yeah,
have to impede on
the problem
parkland.
though is that receiving environment is more sensitive than the one that Richard was indicating on the first slide.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
what Mike's suggesting is, have we investigated a controlled man-made land contact?
That's
Then
what we're doing now. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was talking about. Sorry, Chris. That's the plan. Is a man-made contact area through here,
that
and
would then go
that
to the existing outfall after the man-made contact,
Yeah.
not after the receiving stream.
And that is one option which we'd probably have to run past iwi if once you've done the land contact, whether you want to pump it out. At the moment, that's a sort of hybrid option, Chris, because we are going to retain the pumping facility there, Peter. We need it for extreme events,
Yeah.
and so yeah, this is exactly what we're looking at
There's
now.
quite a lot of options, and they don't cost a lot to shape up and start the discussion on each of them.
So what about in
Yeah,
terms of land purchase? Is there any option to buy any of this land, in front of the pines there, or any land around here to add into that sort of hybrid wetland system we're talking about?
I think the pines are. Where does our boundary go, Peter?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it follows that native line, that fence line up to the pine trees.
Yeah,
Problem, Mike, is the
Yeah,
receiving
the
environment.
pines are in
So
our land, aren't they?
that the ponds go to the tap, but the receiving environment of all the surrounding land goes to the stream.
Yes.
correct. Yep.
Yeah.
But if you got this area up here, up in the hill area in front of the pines, if you got that and you trickle fed it through that and planted it all in native, that would help, wouldn't it?
Yep. I mean,
Yep.
that's exactly what we want to consult on once we get something to you to sort of look at and respond to. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And in terms of affordability, I'm not going to ask Ed to answer straight away. But there are options that, we stage a build. Typically, a build for a consent can be staged. So, the poor souls in the future, 10 years time have to build X for Y. So,
Yeah.
so the community can agree a discharge consent with staged build out requirements.
Age commitments, maybe. Yeah.
So I think what we're really seeking with any major investment is consensus. And consensus includes a very wide group of people. You don't want to build and execute and then have a vocal and unhappy group at the end of it. So
I agree with that.
yeah. And it does have to be affordable because society can only afford its infrastructure once. So it needs to build it with sort of clarity, grace, and clear execution.
We're on board with that. Yes.
So
But looking good, looking really good. Of course.
But Mike, if you're really, really interested, Pete's got some pretty fancy 3D models he's developed through the design process, or was developing, Pete, that she uses through the design process.
yeah.
And maybe, that might be something we can show people next time around, Peter. When they're
It sounds like Mike would like a visit outside. If it's a small
Yeah.
committed group, that's easy to show people around.
Yeah,
If it
it's easier
becomes
a
a
small
large
group
group,
to show people around, isn't it? Yeah.
At the moment, it's just me. I mean, maybe Chris will know if someone else, John, might want to come out, but I'm out in Raglan reasonably regularly, so I wouldn't mind just wandering up at some stage that suits you and go for a wander around, ask some questions.
Yeah. Happy days. Just hit Richard up and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Chris, do you have anything that you particularly interest yourself?
No, I think you guys nailed it. But yeah, exploring the possibilities of a man-made land contact, and then using our existing outfall, and if that would meet the cultural requirements of the
Yeah.
other stakeholders. That would be
Yeah.
key, because obviously that would be a much more controlled. It would be a much more controlled environment, rather than necessarily the unknowns
So
of
yeah.
putting the wastewater
So,
into the river.
so if I just, Richard, just a word about that particular option at the moment, because we're looking at a permeate option, you've got two pipes, you've doubled the capability of the outlet. We would only be able to run for a short period of time through the current outlet before it would need upgrading. The current one only has half. The ultimate design would need two pipes.
Okay.
So the permeate flow would consume the whole flow. When a storm comes, you need another way to release.
Of of
So yeah, so you can
contact with
stage
the
that.
winery stream.
You can stage that, Chris. You could, but there's a second flow path that needs to be dealt with. The permeate flow path is the highest quality, so the environment that is most sensitive would receive that flow, and then the less sensitive would receive the other flow. But there are two flows in a very extreme, like Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
The other sort of problems that we might get is salination events, where a lot of seawater made it into the wastewater network. That's troublesome for us, and we find every home starts, all the ponds fill up, we fill them up to start managing an event like that. So we'll get a lot of experience running this plant and how it couples up to the network when it's running. So our first 3 months there's a lot of attention to our first 3 months, and we can stage a lot of things. We can stage investment. I think when we look at all the options, it is a complex creature, because for every receiving environment, there's pros and cons and what we can do on how we discharge. So the ultimate solution's a much more capable plant, so we do need to be talking about boosting the capability of the discharge.
So one of those options is including the winery reserve, where especially what looks to be the other side of it, that goes eventually into the sand and eventually the sea,
Yep.
that you have the resilience.
Yeah, so I'll try and describe that also, Chris. You're frozen.
On kind of the
Let me I'll just turn my video off. Cool. So yeah, so I just described that. I imagine the montages will come, but effectively that would be a permeate discharge. So it's high quality. Because the receiving environment's robust, you would push the membrane plant hard, and as you do, you eventually start exceeding your nitrogen limits. But at that particular location, the nitrogen limits wouldn't be problematic. So you would go beyond your average, you would start climbing, and then you'd be less likely to ever use the existing discharge. So it would still look like drinking water, but you wouldn't want to drink it because it's got nitrates in it. The plants love the nitrates, but humans don't. Now that particular option would include regeneration, and some ecological, maybe some fencing options to keep predators out, and that's quite good because it keeps people out. People don't like permeate, mostly a psychological reason. It's just an emotional thing. So that recontact with nature and seeing nature come back to the water is very important, I find, for everybody. So I do see it as a long-term, but I like it as an option, and it's added to the set. But very much the community needs to want it, understand the staging, understand the investment. Maybe there is a cheaper option that we run with, and that's what we want to commit to as a community. I think, but there is a resource management act like process which we go through, and that ultimately is to seek consensus. And the Raglan community and people and all the stakeholders, we're on a journey. I don't lead that journey. That's very much led by Richard. I'm here technical support. I try not to have an opinion. Sometimes that's hard. So, yeah. So, yeah. So Chris, I gather your main interest is in the outcome of the ultimate outcome, which is the discharge solution.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we pushed very, very heavily in the early days to separate treatment and discharge. That was
Yep.
actually a community-led thing, because, yeah, the traditional way of doing it is not to separate them, but we could identify that if we didn't sort the discharge now, then the treatment now, we're going to be stuck with this old treatment forever while we dick around
Yeah.
we're looking for the right discharge.
So it's a good call because the technology now is very much standardized. So, once you aim for river quality, go for an MBR plant. It gives you a lot more receiving environments you can send to. And then if you can then adapt it. You can actually run it harder if you need to. So decoupling is the right answer. So that's good that the call was supported. That's good.
We're really happy. I mean, the community in general is really happy that stuff is happening. I think, yeah, once we've got some realistic, BPOs or whatever you want to call them, with numbers behind them, then we can actually get out and start to kind of put this in front of people and timeframes and, like you said, staging. I think it's going to be the only way to do it in the current environment.
Cool. So happy days. So anyway, that's enough probably from me.
I don't, unless there's any further discussion, I think that's pretty much us.
Yeah, apologies from Keith. He tried to connect and he kind of got in, but his audio wasn't working and he was driving. So if you have any questions, obviously I not the best person to answer them for the WDC side, but yeah, as I said, just flick them through and I'll get them answered for you. But yeah, apologies for that.
It's great to hear that it's going well. That your build's going well, and you're ahead of progress at this point in time. So that's cool. Yeah, really good.
We'll flick you an email, Mike, and then we can sort out a time when Peter's out there. And if you want to have a sort of roam around some of the sites we're looking at discharges, that's good. We should have those montages in the next few weeks. So
Ed, is there anything from...
only the first cut, Pete?
Yeah. So Ed, is there anything yourself wanted really from us in the interim? Is there...
I've been keeping a close eye on things myself. I've been down there quite a bit lately with the stormwater stuff and Rangatahi and everything else. I'm just popping in now and again to keep an eye on progress. Met the site foreman, explained the protocols for getting onto the site safely and stuff. So we're all set to go there. So I'll just call in occasionally. I'm just glad to see it being done and stuff's happening, which is a good sign. That's your staged upgrade question earlier on. That does happen quite a lot with infrastructure for wastewater treatment plants, because they're big projects and you sort of agree to do some things now, some things in so many years. It goes on maybe 5 years time even. But it just gives a commitment to both parties that it will happen, but the consent allows you time to do that and to fund it and everything else.
Yeah, and I get that we're going for a 35-year consent, so that could have, the stages each 10 years.
Where is it with the consent? Because it was supposed to be done, 2019 was it? And 5 years later.
Yeah, it's taken a long time. It's been a long journey, hasn't it, John? But we're pretty confident with these last little bits that'll give us enough. That's our options tied up. We'll consult on the options. We'll cost them and put it in front of people, and then a decision will be made which one we should put in our application.
So there's no constraint from time limits or anything like that, because
definitely talking to my consultant the other day, which is I don't know if we've had him on, Garrett Hall from Becker. We want this in before Christmas. Yeah.
Okay.
Short-term consent.
I think
they were talking about a short-term consent for like 2 or 3 years just to get you through this process, and then go for your full 35-year one once the plant was actually sort of installed. But then you got not the disagreement, but the uncertainty of what the new consent is going to require to do as far as performance-wise. So you either hang on a bit longer and go for the full 35-year consent once you know for sure what that sort of consent's looking like for consent limits, and then you build your plant accordingly to match those, or do you take a punt and go, right, we're going to produce this all singing, all dancing plant now, and that should satisfy any consent conditions that drop out of it in due course. Or what we've done before with other sites is say issue a short-term, like we did this for Cambridge. They're not building there, they've started their new plant, but they won't be up and functioning and commissioning until about 2027. So we've given them a 3-year consent to tie them over from the point they were at until such time as the new plant is built, and then they'll get a new consent. Just depends how you want really.
Yeah.
Wait for fast track and just put anything you like in. I put in the chat something that came from back in 2004, and it mentions 1997. I think there's probably going to be some cynicism that you're looking at Wainui Reserve yet again, because it has been, I think the previous reports were done by Tonkin Taylor, and they said, no, it wasn't suitable. So I'm not clear what's changed and whether you're going to be explaining that.
The only way we made it suitable, John, was by basically putting the subsoil drippers in, and they go in about between 3 or 4, 500 millimeters, and then actually draining, but creating a subsoil drainage below that. So it all became a lot of remediation, and then we'd have to drain the stuff which we were draining had to go somewhere. So you sort of started looking at yourself and
It's
saying,
more complicated than that, Richard. 1997, they didn't build MBR plants.
yeah, and exactly. The discharge we're putting in is totally different. Yeah. Yeah.
There is one concern in the community that they want to make sure that this gets lodged before water care say bye-bye. So I don't know if your comms team can try and reassure people, but like people can see that the water care has quit the contract, and they obviously want to know that this is going to be lodged long before water care gone.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And that's our intention, obviously, Chris. You know, there's been such a lot of effort go into this. I don't think, you guys have been tracking it all the way through, have seen the studies that Steve has done. He's been pretty open and informative about that.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about Raglan being done in time. I'm more concerned about Huntley. That's when the clock's going to be ticking with Watercare leaving and that one getting built. So let's just get a good news story and get Raglan sorted first.
It's a little bit like whack-a-mole, isn't it? One. Pete, though, has done a lot of work on Huntley, and he could have a talk to you about
and Narawahia, but that's separate meetings. So yeah.
Save that for another day.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, wonderful to meet you all, but I'm a little bit slow when I'm late in the evening, but anyway, it's nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody jumping on, and have a good evening.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Bye.
See ya.